I know a lot of people in different realms, different professions, and I'm able to help people over in Nashville. One thing I didn't realize when I was elected, though, being a social service provider, how important that would be, because I am the only member of the legislature that is a social service provider / businesswoman, or formerly before I stepped down from Sertoma. And I've been able to be a voice for the voiceless. And while I chair the Transportation Committee, which is an important assignment, it's when I can advocate for people with that are sexual assault victims, or people with disabilities, or our elderly, or our foster kids. That's where, you know, my blood starts boiling, and I get the most excited to be able to make a difference in some people's lives. Well, one piece of legislation that I passed this year that was really exciting was the Tennessee Mobility and Accessibility Act. And basically what that does is set up an office for accessible transportation in the Department of Transportation. It is the first office of its kind in the country. And it's really exciting. We've had lots of folks that have asked me to do presentations on it nationally too, so they could use that as model legislation. But basically it will look at ways to expand transportation for folks that are elderly, that have no transportation, or people with disabilities. Knoxville did not have the ability to compete for these large concerts like the Garth Brooks concert. And every other big city in Tennessee did. And so it was kind of a fairness thing, and it was an economic impact. We thought the economic impact might be $1 or $2 million a year. The Garth Brooks concert alone was an $8 million economic impact. The Insure Tennessee, I actually did vote for it twice that year, and I felt like the Governor Haslam had done a good job of having personal buy-in to healthcare, which I felt like was important. And I thought it was actually a good bill. It was different than the Obamacare, which, you know, some people, you know, were confusing it between. Since then, there's not been a good option and a good opportunity. I don't just vote for things or champion things just to make a statement. I try to get things done. I had a fundamental belief that public dollars shouldn't go to private schools. And it was, you know, my grandmother taught in public schools in Scott County. My sister taught in Knox County. I have a sister-in-law and a brother-in-law that taught in Loudoun County. So I come from a line of public educators, but that was just a basic thing. But I just try to look at each issue individually, talk to folks, listen to what their opinions are. You don't want to increase the size of government. You want to empower people to be the best they can be. You want to be physically responsible with your dollars. You know, Tennessee is one of the most physically responsible states there is. Yes, you know, I always say if we had $100, you and I might spend it a little bit different, but we wouldn't spend 105.
We have gotten complacent in our General Assembly. We have leadership that is comfortable not writing their own legislation. Many of the times they're accepting legislation that's provided for them through organizations that are generally corporations or big businesses. So what we're seeing is a lot of representation on that level and not a lot of representation for the people. People often think about Medicaid expansion as being other, but it's not. It impacts all of us. For example, if someone is a patient and comes into an emergency room, that hospital has to see that patient. The doctors have to see that patient. So they have to be paid. And how does that get paid? Through private insurance. So, what does that mean? It means your deductibles go up, your payments go up. It has an impact. The hospital's going to find the money somewhere. So as long as we're driven at profits, that's going to be a reality. We also need to do it so we can get these rural hospitals opened again. We have the highest rural hospital closure per capita in the nation. And what happens? Well, we lose the jobs, 150 jobs on average for each one of those hospitals, but not just that. Those people, those physicians and nurses and x-ray techs, all of those leave those communities. And when they do, all the services that are designed to support those individuals, dry cleaners, little shops, little restaurants, all those small businesses no longer have that population to serve. And it affects small businesses. Well, listen, I believe that a living wage is at the heart of integrity and dignity and at the heart of a functional economy. So healthy people generate healthy economy. And that includes your financial health and well-being, right? So we can all be in a position where we're making enough money to be able to afford a home, spend the money that we're making, as opposed to creating a dependency on government. Listen, it is fiscally responsible if a government wants to keep its purse strings tight to regulate business to make sure that they're paying a wage that's commensurate with the sustainability of living here in our city. If we can start to work, we've got a great public utilities relationship with TVA and KUB now, although there's still room for that to be even a healthier and better relationship. We can start to work together. If you imagine that if we could put solar on just some of the millions of square feet that we have on top of our buildings, just in downtown, but throughout Knoxville, we could be generating an awful lot of electricity and reducing our dependency on fossil fuels, which is a critical step in terms of managing what's happening with our climate now. And I love the idea of Knoxville becoming a model city. It also creates jobs and it attracts industry. One of our biggest problems now in the state of Tennessee is our legislators are selling us to businesses as a place with cheap labor and no regulation. And I am tired of that. And I think a lot of Tennesseans are. We're not about cheap labor. We should be about having quality jobs. Let's attract industries, not because they want to take advantage of people and not because they want to take advantage of a state because they don't regulate in terms of our clean air and clean water, but let's become a state that people want to come and live in because they want to have their businesses here, because we have great schools, we have clean environments, we have healthy water, and we have a labor force that's educated and prepared to be there.